I asked myself if I really wanted to do it and if I had anything to say more than I already said, and I realized that I did have a lot more to say, and so that was kind of exciting to, think of the things and work with a group of writers to make them happen and say something about the country we live in these times. It was just very happy and fun, and like I said, it was like no time had passed. It was like we had a month off or something, and we all knew exactly what to do. It was just all still alive, and we just pushed the button and it happened. I think the voice of working people is absent from television, and I think we always had that, and we have it again. And there's nothing on television like it. It reminds me a lot of when we first started, there was nothing on television like our show, and it's still that way. So I felt that there was a slot for us to come back. The Roseanne show, we don't have any fear of being politically correct. And I think this is a good time for that. And people being angry at each other and not understanding each other, thinking the other one made a horrible mistake, and all those things that I have in my own family and everybody I know has in theirs. Always for me, it's the jokes. And we have some really good jokes, and I think people are going to like them. It's very funny, and it's very deep. So those two things I think people will like they used to like.
I did a sketch with Sara on her show, The Talk, and it was like we didn't miss a beat, and it really made me nostalgic. And she asked me if I wanted to do the show again. I said, yeah, I'd do it in a heartbeat. It was like we had a week off for 20 years, and everybody just slid right back into it. It was coming back to fun, coming back to family. When you do a thing like this, the crew becomes, you can't wait to see them every day. How's it going? And I really missed it. I really did. Without going into it too far, the middle class is getting squeezed. The jobs are disappearing fast. They're service economy jobs. A lot of skilled labor is being displaced. But having said that, it's a place to go where you can see people with similar problems. I think in trying to just live through it with some grace and love, and it shows that we have to rely on each other because there's nobody else out there that cares. So we get through it. Darlene brings 2 kids, Harris and Mark. Another teenager with attitude, and she misses home. She has to move to Lanford, and it's hard for her because it's smaller. She misses her friends, and Mark's a great kid because he's just full of energy, but he's not limited to anything. He's got a lot of curiosity, and they're both played by wonderful young actors. They're a lot of fun. And DJ has a little girl that he's raising alone right now, but with us, and she's a delight. She's just a trip to watch, and she's so open. I wish I could have been like that when I was a kid.
Roseanne is a story about the Connor family who live in Lanford, Illinois. And we were on in the 90s, and we're jump cutting to the same family in 2017 and see well, obviously they're still living in the same house. So some things haven't changed at all. But there's new characters on the show because the kids who grew up on the show now have kids of their own. So there's that new round of characters to meet. And it just was always a show about, led by Roseanne, of course, but about kind of small family issues. And I think that this reboot is following that same path. It's still about the family and those different dynamics. Jackie is now working as a life coach, Lanford's leading life coach. And I know that in her head, she's doing a fantastic job at it. I don't know what the clients, I don't know who would be coming to see her. I don't know how she advertises herself. I don't know. You could spend a whole episode just on that probably. But yeah, you never see me at work, but I do offer strong advice to family members, unsolicited. Walking onto the set was out of this world. Came through this way, saw the kitchen first, and then the living room. I do not know how they recreated it in such detail. You know, obviously the couch and the Afghan, but the Godzilla back there, the same picture. It's just, it was mind-blowing. And it took about 30 seconds to settle in, and then the weirdest thing happened, which was it was like no time had passed at all. So it was just like we ended season 9, and no time went by, and we were picking up in season 10. I think we're all thinking of it as season 10 because it's just been so comfortable. I love when Jackie is bound and determined to try her hand at something that she probably isn't going to succeed at, but she goes at it with gusto. I think she's not afraid to play the victim card whenever, you know, that might help her out a little bit. I think it was always playing a character that you could kind of root for because you could see all of her flaws, but she couldn't see them in a way. I think that they just want to feel that comfortableness that we're all feeling right now, you know. Oh, I know this family. I had, you know, a daughter like that. I have a sister like that. My dad's just like that. And so you want to visit them again and see what they've been through, you know, during the time off that you've also, you know, we're in parallel universe there. I think people will be really curious to tune in and just see the faces again.
I felt like it was important to bring it back right now because our country is so divided, and this is a family that politically can be totally different from each other, but it doesn't mean they don't love each other. And I think that's what we're missing right now. Everybody's so angry, no one's listening to each other, everyone's making everybody the bad guy and getting more and more extreme on each side. So it felt like people love this family, and I felt like it could really be a unifying force and give us a chance to talk about these kind of things. I also just really wanted to do it personally, and it happened to line up with a good time socially and culturally to do it. It was very easy. I think everyone just thought that nobody else wanted to do it, and as soon as I started asking people, they were thrilled. Stepping onto the set, the first table read was surreal. Just having everybody sit around the table like we used to and have the sets behind us looking almost exactly the same. And it was truly incredible. And I felt like I almost feel sorry for people that never get an experience like this. There's something about revisiting things that happened 20 years ago. Obviously, most people don't get to do that in their lifetime, but there's something phenomenal about it. Darlene is now, she's still married technically, but for all intents and purposes is single because David's been mostly out of the picture. She's got their 2 kids that she's been raising pretty much by herself. One is Harris, who was born, I think, like last or second to last season of the original. And that's her daughter. And then her son is Mark, named after David's brother. It's always important to have an unconventional family on TV. I think a lot of times writers are writing things about families that are well off or square or kind of normal. And I think most people aren't like that. Most people struggle, most people are quirky, most people are weird. So I think it's always important, and that's what we hope to do, is let people feel like, instead of that's a TV family, let them feel like, oh, that's my family. For sure, the show will attract the original diehard fans and viewers and people who have missed it and have a natural curiosity. And I think and hope that we'll continue to engage them, because I feel like we're making really good shows, hopefully. You know, obviously I'm biased, but I really feel proud of what we've done so far. And in terms of new viewers, the only way I know is based on my own children. So I started by showing them a clip reel that was cut together that we show the audience before the tapings, and I just wasn't sure what they'd think of it or if they'd even want to come to a taping, and they were laughing so hard. It was like as if no time had passed. It just stood the test of time. And then they came to a taping and were asking how many tapings they could come to and when could they come again. And so my kids they're not going to lie to me to that level, like where they're going to want to keep coming to tapings or sit there for 3 hours if they don't really like something.
Becky lost her husband, and she is waitressing, and she's really, you know, unlike some of the Connors, she has a steady job. So that's something, and she has her own apartment, and she's got her own life, but in some ways, in other ways, she's really arrested since her husband died emotionally, and, you know, is drinking a lot, and maybe has put some of her bigger ambitions to the wayside because of this devastating blow in her personal life. It's weird because I want to say, oh, I was so shocked, or, you know, it was like the reveal, it was so crazy, but it really wasn't. It was just, you know, like walking into your home, you know, after you've been an adult and you go back to maybe your grandparents' house or your aunt's house or something like that, because it was so familiar. And then I was surrounded by people that I had worked with every single day for years. And so it was just kind of, it really felt like walking into a home. Honesty and love it's a fine line sometimes that we walk in our family, in our TV family. But I think that's, you know, that's part of our charm, is that we break a lot of those taboos that also exist in families. I don't want to talk about this. This is uncomfortable. We kind of just bust right through all that. I don't know how often there's a show that is so authentic. You know, it's really, it's not trying to be sensational. It's not trying to shock. It's not trying to be soft either, or paint a picture that is, you know, glamorous or exotic or whatever, edgy. And I think that there's a certain bravery to our show, to just, our authenticity is really what makes it a powerful show. I was always kind of more like Darlene, more like a tomboy. And I show up and I realize, and I knew from the script, you know, I knew Becky was very smart, but I also knew that she was a girly girl. And the first episode, they put me in these tight pink pants. And part of me, you know, the actor in me, even at that age, was like, that's cool, because this is a character, and what is this? You know, who is this? What is this? And part of me was like, I'm really embarrassed to be wearing these pink pants because I'm such a tomboy, and what are my friends going to think? back in Chicago. And over the years, I've grown to see Becky as a cool gal. I mean, she's a little dorky, but like a lot of people come up to me and say, oh, my family used to watch your show, but my sister got to be Darlene. And I always say, well, Becky's pretty cool, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yes, she is. But what's funny is showing up this time and having these younger kids on the set. And they think Becky's really cool. And so I'm like, shh, don't tell anybody that.
What this show does is we take comedy and we take drama and we smash them together. And in one moment, you're heartbroken. And in the next moment, you're laughing and you take that joy. And we do this thing that I think has always been unique, that Roseanne kind of led with, and I think Sara is really pushing again, is to take the heartache that you feel and find the joke in it or the way to take the sting out of it. And I think that's what people do. I think they take life, comes at you fast and hard, and it's tough, but we all make the best out of our situations. For our old fans, I think the thing that is going to immediately stick out is it feels like home. I think we're kind of shocked by that every day. It's just how good the chemistry is, how much we feel connected and a part of the old show, and the way the rhythm with the good writing, the way the rhythm bounces back and forth between Darlene and Becky, between Roseanne and Darlene, and Roseanne and Becky, and me and Roseanne. And it just, DJ has this kind of, he's the wild card kind of looking up to everybody, and now he's kind of older and bigger than a lot of the others. And so it has this shifting dynamic that I think people will enjoy and relate because you know the backstory. DJ has grown up. He is just out of the military, and his wife Gina is actually still in. So there's kind of that gap where she's deployed, and he's at home, and he's trying to kind of reestablish himself with his daughter Mary. And as they come to grips with what that means to kind of be in this position where you're a single dad in a lot of ways, and to grasp that and then to be in an interracial relationship, I think there's a lot of elements and layers to that I'm really excited about. I think it's a great place for us as a show, but also particularly for me as an actor. Any words I use to describe that first moment when we walked in together is maybe insufficient. I don't know that you can totally explain it. The only way I can kind of explain it to people is if you've ever moved away from the town you grew up in, and then you show back up, and a lot of it is very much the way you left it. And the people that you expected to see kind of had that same feeling, but time has passed, but things are very relatable and comfortable and homey. I think what people are going to see is that all of us kind of have grown, that everybody has changed, advanced, from Roseanne to John to Laurie, Lisi, Sara. All of us have we have a lot more life experience to pull from. I mean, we have basically an extra 20 years of experience that we bring to these characters that were already so complex and so diversified. And then when you look at that now, I think everybody's really blossoming, and it's fun to watch people interact with that new skill set.
I just got a call from Sara and from Tom, and they told me about the show, and I was like, yes, I'm on board. Anything I would love to do. And the part that I get to play is actually really fun. I hire Becky to be my surrogate. Now is the perfect time for the show to come back. It really addresses what is going on in the world right now and the way that the election affected Middle America. And I think the country just feels very divided. I think this show can bring everyone together in a way that is really unique, because I think that there are fans of the show on both sides. I think the show really puts out two very different perspectives, and so I'm really excited. It's huge. to have gotten the opportunity to have been part of this show, both at the beginning when I walked in season 6. It was this groundbreaking show that was taking such risks that other shows weren't taking, and Roseanne was at the forefront of that. She was the one that was saying, I want to have the episode where Roseanne hits DJ, and let's handle that. Let's tackle some really tough issues. And for me, I will always be so grateful that she took a chance on a kid from Canada who sends this grainy tape down. And it was two things for me. I mean, I first of all got to work with these insanely talented comedians, and that was my training ground and my education. And to watch what they would do with a script from a Monday morning table read till a Thursday night tape night, and to watch when a scene wasn't working and Roseanne would say, okay, give me a minute, and she would move some stuff around and we would come back in and do it, and it would just work. And also as a 16-year-old female, having somebody so smart and in control and knowing what she wanted, and it was just like, what a role model to get to have. And then secondly, I mean, it just opened so many doors in my life for me that wouldn't have been otherwise. So I feel really lucky. Doing the live audience adds a whole other dimension to it. It's so fun. It just gets like everybody's energy and adrenaline up, and the audiences were amazing, especially in these last episodes in this revival, because they really had real fans come. I mean, I think the first episode they had people fly in from different parts of the country, and so it was really exciting. We had never really obviously gotten to work together before, except for that one tag where when we were switching back and forth, they did a takeoff on the Patty Duke show. They're Becky's nearly identical Becky's instead of nearly identical cousins. And so that was the only time that we'd worked together on the show. And then a year and a half ago, we did an episode of Inside Amy Schumer, which was a stand-up of sitcoms. And I replace Amy Schumer, and Lisa replaces me, and then a little kid replaces her. So we got to hang out that night and get to know each other better, and she's great. It was so I was excited to get to actually do some scenes with her.
From time to time, people have asked Marcy or me whether or not we'd consider a revival, and we always said the time isn't right. Sara did an interview with John on her show, and she sent me the interview, and from the moment the two of them were on that couch together and they seemed so comfortable, it seemed, it feels relevant. It feels of the moment. And we all know that we're in a country that's more divided than ever. And so this seemed like a great time to see where the characters are. And I'm excited about it because it isn't just feeling like we were frozen in time and let's go back and see what they were doing. This is really a progression of what the Connor family has been up to. And it's such a stellar cast. And when everybody agreed to do it, it just seemed like this is the right time. It was one of the great things about Roseanne is that you could have a comedic scene and then you could have something that's very meaningful and poignant. And I don't think enough comedies do that. And you're right, we're talking about very relevant and contemporary issues, whether it's opioid addiction or the healthcare issues, or dealing with a mother who's wrestling with, whether she should be in the home or their own home. There are so many contemporary issues that we're tackling in this series. We wanted to make something that was living up to its potential. And it's not easy making a show. It's a bit like making a souffle. And you have to have good writers, and we're very fortunate to have a blend of the old writers who knew Roseanne and some new writers who had fresh perspective. So we needed to have good scripts. We needed to have the actors be committed to it and feel like this is something they wanted to do. And so for me, it was just, we had a high bar, and I didn't want to disappoint people who loved the original so much and would come to it and feel like this is not as good. In fact, that's the thing I'm most excited about, is that when people see it, they'll say, this is just like watching the old show. I think we all shared that feeling when we walked onto the set the first time. the original couch is in the Smithsonian, but the set decorations were so specific with the pickled eggs and the Afghan on the couch and the way that we updated a little bit the kitchen, and we obviously have a refrigerator that's not 25 years old. But you walked onto that set and you really just felt you were in the Connor household. We live in a very complicated time, and there's a lot of division, not just in the country, but in families. It would be wonderful if families could come together, whether they are liberal or conservative, whether they live in a red state or a blue state, that they come together and watch this and relate to the Connors who are going through such challenges.
Sara Gilbert was interviewing John Goodman for a movie that had come out, and she asked him if he'd do a little bit, just her and him on a couch reviving the Roseanne roles. And they did it. Everybody loved it. It was wonderful to watch. And she said casually to John, would you ever do the show again? He goes, oh, in a heartbeat. I think everybody assumed that nobody really was going to come back, because after 20-some-odd years, you moved on, you were doing what. And Sara reached out to everybody. Everybody wanted to do it. Tom reached out to me. I said, oh, are you kidding? I'm there. So we're doing it. There's nobody who's been more affected than working class America by all the upheaval and the political changes in the country. And yet there's really no show like Roseanne on the air. Not that there aren't good family shows and everything else, but nothing with the level of reality, level of naturalism, honesty that we were able to achieve on Roseanne. So we could deal with things in a way that was very, I think, relatable to everybody, because that show always had like all views, all opinions. It's an exact replica with some changes. We updated some appliances and things like that. And I can't tell you the amount of work that went into the detail of discussing what could change and what must not change. The Afghan had to be there on the couch. There's no way you'd have that. So it was a very eerie kind of deja vu experience. Very warm, though. It felt great. I hope that they get that you can have comedy and relevance, and that you can do dramatic moments in a comedy and not be scared of them. And I hope they get that we're exploring a lot of areas to open dialogue, to open conversations between, it's a pretty polarized country right now. And we happen to be a show that has all the poles involved. So it's one where people can come together and talk about things, and hopefully it's kind of a bit of a healing thing. It's a lot to ask of a sitcom. And we always make the joke, it's not brain surgery. This one kind of is brain surgery. This one there's a lot to be done and said as a result of something that is a work of entertainment. But I really hope that people get a lot more out of it than just a laugh, but there's a lot of laughs. The first table read, I was like, I can't believe I'm sitting here again. Like I sat here 20-some-odd years ago, and John, it's just looking across and hearing everybody. It's a very nobody ever expected the show to come back. And like my daughter was 1 year old when it came on, and when we got the revival information, I said, "Hey, you're going to go to a taping of Roseanne," and she's like, "What?" So it's like she was a little baby. So yeah, it's what do you call it? It's humbling, because it's a hard legacy to keep the level of quality up. At the same time, what an opportunity.
I had done a pilot with Tom Werner, who made the first Roseanne, and was a producer, obviously, on it. And we did a show together, and basically every day between takes, I would nag him to tell me Roseanne stories. Like, how did they come up with certain ideas and character choices? And this episode, like, how did you cast this person? Like, I was just so obsessed with the show, and I had someone who had inside information. So I was always nagging him for Roseanne gossip. And I would always say to him, like, that show is more relevant now than ever. We would kind of always say that. And then Sara Gilbert initiated, John Goodman coming on the show, and then they sort of flirted with the idea of a revival. And by some weird miracle, it manifested. Like a couple weeks later, Tom called me and was like, "Oh, Roseanne might be coming back." I was like, "Oh my God, I can't wait." And he's like, "Would you want to be a part of it?" And I was like, I had absolutely no time. I had like 3 other projects I was working on, and I was like, yes, I'm available. So I just made it happen, because I couldn't resist sort of the miraculous opportunity to be a part of it. It was the only show that I watched that made me feel better about my life and not worse. And I was like, oh my God, that's what my couch looks like. That's what my kitchen looks like. Those are the kind of problems we have. And I felt very seen, and I felt understood, and I also was very comforted by this family who had every problem in the world but still had a tremendous amount of love, and that's what got them through it. The first time we sat down and thought of ideas, or we're like working on ideas together, it was at a hotel, I don't remember which one, in Santa Monica, and she was, you know, it's interesting. A lot of times you meet your heroes and it's sort of like a bummer. She came with ideas, stories. Her instincts were impeccable. She had us like, I went in with a very specific agenda of like, here's all the ideas she's gonna love. And then she came with just some really, really incredible insights where I was like, I haven't even thought of it that way before. So it was pretty amazing to sit down with her and be able to deconstruct her brain. The first time we all saw the couch in the living room was pretty wild. Because we were working on the set for so long and in such a meticulous way, because we wanted to get everything perfectly right. I mean, the walls were actually green, which I don't remember. For some reason, I just thought they were like a gross white, but they're celadon. It's a word that I didn't even know before working on Roseanne. The walls are celadon, and because they shot on film, and we now shoot on high def, which is why I look so tired, it was really hard to get the colors right. So we spent a lot of time in there working with the walls and working with the carpets and the wallpaper and everything, and we hadn't really paid a lot of mind to the couch. And one day we came in to look at the celadon walls, and the couch was sitting there, and it was like, it's what I imagine your wedding day is like. I literally like walked up and I was like I was misty-eyed, like I had to take a walk. Like it just brought up so much like nostalgia, and I think especially at a time like now where the news can be so complicated and overwhelming and frustrating and heartbreaking and stressful, it just brings back this time when things were simpler. Filming the new main title sequence was incredibly memorable. Just watching that camera go around with these characters 20 years later with that harmonica. As soon as you hear that harmonica, it's like someone's giving you a hug or something. And then that laugh, I mean, it's wild.